Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
You can be forgiven if your economic anxiety is cranked up to about 11 to start the new year. Welcome to In This Economy, where we're looking at what's driving the spending trends, the political and business activities, moving the money around. And it already seems like we've had a full year jammed into the first week of 2025. Whether it was the incoming U.S. president's threat to make Canada a 51st state through what he called economic force, and or the issue of who's minding the store in Ottawa with the resignation announcement by the Prime Minister. We'll look at how the financial markets have responded with the bellwether of the Canadian dollar dropping like a stone. The second topic we'll cover this week was Mark Zuckerberg of Meta Platforms announcing that fact-checkers are going bye-bye at Facebook and Instagram. Joining me to break it all down is Professor Eric Kam. He's a professor of economics at Toronto Metropolitan University. Hello, Eric. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you for the invitation.
Professor, I think we can say that if we were hoping for a stable start to 2025, it's been anything but. With the president-elect threatening tariffs, I'm not sure, though, that anyone was expecting he'd go from that to then trolling us about joining the Stars and Stripes. And then you add to the mix what happened in Ottawa this week with the sudden chaos surrounding the Liberal leadership.
No. And if they did, they should spend more time in Nevada. I mean, this is absolutely insane. And what scares me about it is the whole idea of this parliamentary prorogue, because that's a fancy term, which means nothing is going to happen. And so when I hear parliamentary prorogue, I in my mind, what I filter is economic prorogue. Nothing is going to happen to the economy now for weeks in terms of policy. And that is about the worst outcome that Canadians can have right now, because our economy on a macro level, Mike, is just absolutely stagnant. GDP growth is at about zero. Macroeconomic indicators are almost all pointing down. And let's not forget that we've got a person coming into the White House who says he's going to use tariffs to basically get rid of our economy on some level. Because if he does come in and slap on 20% tariff on goods they import from Canada, this will decimate the Canadian economy. And so you think that's the time that we need active leadership to work with the economy and to look into economic planning. And yet our government goes and says, we're going to take a holiday until March. We'll worry about this later. This proroguing is the wrong thing to do at the wrong time in an economic sense. We have, I could argue, never in this country been at a crossroads like this, and there's nobody minding the shop, Mike. And it's scary for many reasons that we can get into.
Well, the stage was basically set already in the fall with the Chrystia Freeland's sudden resignation. Their big idea at that point was this GST holiday, which is taking place. I don't know if anybody's still talking about that at all, but there was the fact that Parliament had already been in a stalemate, a filibuster, and nothing has really been getting done for the past several months.
Well, that's right. And our government doesn't have, in my opinion, a valid economic growth strategy, right? Immigration was, and by the way, disclosure, I'm Jewish. Nobody Jewish is going to sit here and tell you they've got to shut the border and not allow anybody in, because that's rewinding the clock back to 1930. But immigration as an economic growth strategy is a loser. And it's almost always been a net loser. So what is this government doing, right? Okay, let's go back quickly. Pandemic, let's print way more money than we needed to, way faster, right? That's this government's MO, speed. Then let's raise the interest rate 10 times in 2 years, way too fast on the backs of Canadians. Then let's drop the thing as fast as we can. Again, way too fast. Even if you, like me, think that it had to go up and then it had to go down, fine. But the speed of this, you're not giving the economy a chance to absorb these changes. There's no accommodation. And so what you're left with is a government that says, what can we do, right? We have no long-term economic growth strategy. And by that, I mean, can we increase the amount of goods and services this country can produce using either demand or supply management? The answer is no. So the government says, all right, let's pull out the one thing we know how to do. We'll keep consumption at some stable level by offering people a tax holiday, or, remember the one that will give everybody a check for $250, and then they pulled that back. So it's just really scary to me how there's just no economic planning in the system. There's just old Keynesian strategies of, let's just make sure as long as spending stays at some, what we think is a good, strong level, our economy will stay afloat. But Mike, that doesn't work forever. And if you've got nothing else other than spending, again, without any economic growth to absorb it, we're going to end up right in the same inflationary spiral that got us into this mess.
Well, I heard discussion this morning about if Trump does follow through on the tariffs, and there's no reason to think he won't, that we're going to need a whole bunch of government spending to offset it. Otherwise, the GDP is going to crater. Does the government, after, the fiscal forecast was already pegging the deficit at $62 billion, is there any money there? I mean, sure, they can go further into debt, but how much more does that just make the problem even worse?
It totally exacerbates the problem. You'd have to have a crystal ball to know how much worse. I mean, the government's given up on the deficit, right? The deficit and the debt, they're going with these kind of what are called post-Keynesian strategies of it doesn't matter. If you have a central bank and it denominates in your own currency, then you're just borrowing from yourself, and who cares? The government has a really scary luxury that you and I and Canadians don't have, which is their credit card doesn't have a spending limit. And so they can play this game for as long as they want and run the deficit as high as it wants. But don't ever believe people that tell you that doesn't have reverberation effects in the short and the long run. As we become more of a credit risk and our interest payments just skyrocket, and you just have more and more of paying down debt and interest payments as a percentage of your GDP starting to rise. I mean, it's a scary time. We need a change in government. And I know that is probably the least surprising thing I'll ever say. And that change seems to be coming. The problem is what's going to ensue in the months between where we are now and when we have new vision at Parliament Hill. Because this is what really scares me as an economist, is I always just look at things like price stability and employment growth and gross domestic product growth. And really none of it right now is terribly stable. If they want to hang their hat on anything, I guess they can say, well, we have restored some price stability to what it was. Well, okay, yeah. At the height of the post-pandemic you have, but not compared to where we were before the pandemic. There's still far too many Canadians. The average debt load in this country right now is now over 100%. Right? Too many people are one paycheck away from insolvency. There were studies that say where Canadians have about $200 in savings for a rainy day. And that's not a lot of savings. We have got to get to a point where we get back to some, what I call solvency, which is really just disposable income minus taxes. Put some money in people's wallets and not just motivate them to save it, but at least also motivate them to have some combination of spending and saving, because that's really what it is to be a consumer in a capitalist economy, right? Is bring back some choice to have some money to spend on a rainy day. But don't keep motivating people just spend like a bunch of, as the quote is, drunken sailors, because that's just of no good for an economy, Mike. So really it is time for some new vision, some new leadership. And I'll very quickly finish this rant by saying, we had this holy war on inflation, right? Look at the United States. It didn't. And people said this is going to kill the United States. It didn't kill it. Billions and billions of dollars flowed into the United States because people said, if I'm going to park my money somewhere, I'll park it where the interest is a little bit higher. So, we just have to stop tripping over our own shoelaces, and we just got to have some better economic plans.
Is the market telling us as much? The Canadian dollar, has been breaching 69 cents. 4 months ago, it was up around 74. I mean, it has really seen a precipitous drop here. And the talk is it could go a lot lower if things really start to go sideways here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think it is going to go a lot lower. I don't think things have to go sideways. I think right now the warning labels are out for Canada. And, when Trudeau resigned, I heard some people say, well, look, I mean, this is nice. This is nice. Positive expectation have finally come back. Well, listen, minimally. I saw someone say that their happiness index and the comfortability with the Canadian economy index rose from 300 to 600. Honestly, I'd rather ask my ex-wife for an opinion on me, right? That's how good these things are and how useful they are. You've got to actually look at data, right? There's just no flavor right now in the international community to invest in Canada. There's no markers. There's no macro indicators that say this is a good place to invest. This is a place. This is an economy that's just ready to take off and ready to grow. And as I said a minute ago, whether in the United States you can say, well, they were lucky or they were smart. Does it really matter? At the end of the day, they tried a macro strategy that worked and propped up their dollar and propped up their interest rates without having to have any intervention by their central bank, right? Just money flowing into the economy. We have to try to get back to some of that. But it's going to be really hard if Trump slaps on these tariffs and then the outlook for Canada even looks more grim. And that expectations are one of the things that drives an economy. And so our expectations right now are just not looking good. And thank heavens I don't have to make these decisions, because as a university professor, we can talk all day about what to do, but I'm not the person who has to actually implement those policies. But I can tell you that things have to be done, especially on the supply side, to try to right the ship.
Yeah. You think the Bank of Canada keeps cutting interest rates?
They have to now. They have come out of the closet that consumption is their main driver, right? Gross domestic product is simple. It really is. It's just adding up consumption, investment, government spending, and then net export. And they've said we're going to concentrate on the consumption side. So yeah, they are going to drop the interest rate. They want to make borrowing as easy and as painless as possible, and hope that people continue to buy big ticket items. But there's a limit to that strategy, as we talked about. People can only buy so much, right? When savings is so low as an economy, and there's still so much worry in insolvency. Our job numbers, they're not terrible, but we don't exactly have great job growth, and unemployment statistics, depending on how you stratify the economy, don't look so great. So yeah, that's my way of saying, they're going to double down on their policy. And I find it actually fascinating that money isn't flowing into Canada right now. I mean, it actually is kind of interesting, right? That, our dollar is so low, Mike. It's like getting to historical lows, and you think, what's a good investment strategy? Buy low, sell high. We are so screwed up as an economy that people don't even want to buy low. They don't even want to buy our dollar. They figure the worst is yet to come. And I think that, you can always look at futures markets and say, that's how people view the economy. Our dollar isn't low enough yet for the international community to buy it. And to me, that's a scary fact.
Welcome back as we continue our conversation with Professor Eric Kam from Toronto Metropolitan University. And another big business story this week was the announcement by Mark Zuckerberg at Meta Platforms announcing the elimination of fact checkers from Facebook and Instagram. Basically, deciding to follow Elon Musk's lead at X, allowing users to be the arbiters of what's true and what's not true. Zuckerberg explained the decision on a post on Instagram.
So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
So, Eric, was Meta's move away from fact checkers just Mark Zuckerberg reading the political winds of change?
Mark Zuckerberg is a very smart, well, not so young fellow anymore, but a very smart fellow. And he's one of the people like Elon Musk that when they speak, people listen. And I always wonder what's up, because these are still at the bottom line. I don't care how rich you are. These people are still profit driven. So I wonder what's going on when I see things like this. So, taking off all the fact checkers and this and that, I kind of wonder what's the game here? What's the end game? And I have a feeling that Zuckerberg is far from finished in this. I think there's got to be some AI angle to this. There's got to be some artificial intelligence thing that he's not telling us. Maybe there is some new and improved toy, for lack of a better word, that they may introduce to improve on the things that he has right now. Because it seems to me that he's waving the white flag in a sense, right? He's saying, well, quality control doesn't matter anymore. Okay, but why? Why do you want to be known as the person that owns things that have no quality control? Well, it may be because better quality control is coming down the pike. And so it makes me wonder, what is he doing? Who is he working with? And how much money does he think he can make by doing this? So I find these people incredible. I really do. It was like, and I know you'll laugh, but every time that Dave Nickel, who used to run Loblaws, went on vacation, we had to taste something he brought home. And that's how I find this group of people like Musk and like Zuckerberg, to some extent, even Joe Rogan. When they talk, you have to listen, because these are the real influencers of influencers. So I wonder, if you're going to remove quality control, where are you going to put the quality control, Mike? So I wonder what's coming next.
I'm curious if there is a risk, though, when Musk took over Twitter and then subsequently renamed it X and got rid of the fact checkers and got rid of 3/4 of the staff. There was an advertiser pushback. Is that something? And maybe now advertisers aren't as worried about it. Again, coming back to the change of the leadership of the White House. That's going to be kind of interesting to see exactly how it affects or doesn't affect Facebook's revenue stream.
Well, yeah, it is. It is. And I think this is why I kind of gave a little bit of a muted follow the money type of answer, because I'm sure there's advertisers who say to themselves, in a perfect world, we don't like this. This bothers us. They've removed a lot of the things that we liked. And so maybe we should, pull our dollars and move them somewhere else. Yeah, maybe, or maybe not, because let's see what happened. I mean, has the profitability, has the market cap, has the value of Facebook or X gone down since the people who run these companies have effectively made them worse? And the answer is not really. They're still worth billions of dollars, and there's probably still billions of dollars to go. So, I don't want to throw shade at advertisers. They're always going to put their money where they think their products get the most viewership. And so that's why I don't take them terribly seriously when they say, let's move away from the Meta platforms or the X platforms. At the end of the day, they're going to put their advertising dollars at the very best place that their products will be seen. And, these are still look at the numbers of Facebook, right? And, what is it? One out of every 5 people on the planet has a Facebook account. And 1 out of every 7 people on the planet, checks X. These are ridiculous numbers, and advertisers just can't ignore them. And I think that Zuckerberg and Musk, they know that. So I think, sadly, they can do what they want. I mean, there's limit. I hope they don't turn them into, great platforms for hate. We've seen a little bit too much of that. But I think that if they don't, and they still maintain what looks like some level of democratic conversation, advertisers are going to park their dollars there, because where else can you get your product seen by 1 out of every 5 or 7 people on the planet, Mike?
Eric, thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, Mike, it's really nice to have a chance to chat. We'll do it again down the road.
That's it for another episode of In This Economy. If you have an idea about a show or a personal finance question, or want to learn more about what moves the markets, you can get in touch with us anytime by emailing us at hello@itepod.com. Thanks for listening. I'm Mike Eppel.